Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. The Sea Ranch Forum Steering Committee is an independent group, not an arm of the TSRA. Our goal is to present forums that are relevant to life on the Sea Ranch. In many cases, our interests run parallel with the communication interests of the TSRA committees, and we cooperate with those groups in presenting forums. However, our greatest value to the Sea Ranch is presenting information outside the formalities of TSRA or their committees. Before we start, I'd just like to thank a few people. First, I'd like to thank Jim Platt, who for third year running now has agreed to be our moderator. I'd like to thank Patty Matson, who this morning called me up and took over the organization of the reception afterwards. And she's over in the farmhouse now, and as I said, if anybody has any beverages or food they need to drop off, she can help you find a place for those. Other than that, I'm going to turn the forum over to Jim Platt, and this will be the last thing I have to say. At least today. I try to be brief.
Well, welcome. We're delighted with the turnout. Can you hear me all right? Okay, great. I am Jim Platt. I'm a moderator for today. I'm a volunteer. I'm not a member of the forum committee, so any criticisms or praises of what happens today, they should be directed to me directly. I'd like to just, out of curiosity, how many Sea Ranch property owners do we have here today? Okay, thank you. How many non-Sea Ranchers do we have here today? Okay, thank you. The objective of this forum is to provide the voters in the Sea Ranch Board of Director elections, i.e. the people owning property on the Sea Ranch, information about their candidates. So only they are going to participate in the Q&A portion of the meeting. Now our agenda today is that prior to the meeting, I met with the candidates and we used random drawing to establish the seating order at the head table, the order of which they'll give their opening statement, and the order in which they will give a closing statement. And so our agenda then is that we're going to start with a 10-minute statement from each candidate, and then we will begin the Q&A, and what we will have projected on the wall up here is a counter that shows 2 minutes counting down. So you have 2 minutes for a question, and then the speakers have 2 minutes maximum for a response. Somewhere around the 1 hour point, we'll take a break and then continue with the Q&A. And when we get to about 5:45, our candidates will do closing and summary remarks, and those will each have a 3-minute limit. And then after that, we'll adjourn to the reception, and discussions can continue on an informal basis at that time. So let me start now by having our candidates come and introduce themselves as they speak. And the first speaker, our first opening speaker, is going to be C.E. Brown, followed by Tim Gallagher, followed by Jim Jordan. Thank you very much.
Thank you each for coming. I am so delighted that you are here, and I'm so delighted that I am here. And I thank the Forum Committee for changing the date of the forum so that I could be included, because I so want to conduct an interview with you, me interviewing for a job that you have to hire. I'm interviewing for the job of being your representative, and I'm doing that because I really want you to hire me. I think that I am the one you want. The trouble is, you might not know that yet. You might even think that the other guys are what you want. But I want you to test me. I want you to stress test me and ask me the toughest questions you have so that you can see who I am, how I respond, and how I handle issues. I think that I'm the one you want because I'm more qualified by education and profession, and I'm more experienced in real public policy making and problem solving. I'm more committed to representing you. I am absolutely passionate for holding the members in the highest regard and for operating all our governance functions with absolute openness, transparency, and accountability. And I'm old-fashioned. I have an old-fashioned respect for the hard-earned dollar and old-fashioned common sense. I have exactly the right education and experience for this job, as it happens. But what is really essential is that I have gumption and backbone, and I'm not afraid to employ them both. I stand tall and firm on right principles, on Sea Ranch principles. I'm not a namby-pamby candidate, and I won't be a namby-pamby director. What you see is what you get. You'll always get a real answer from me. I will be as responsive to you as I wish people had been to me over my 20 years of membership here. I'm real, I do answer questions. Even if the answer is I don't know, I'll tell you that. I understand that our directors are accountable to the membership. At least that's what our organizational chart shows. And I don't see how it should be any other way. I think that's exactly how it should be. That's why I will be absolutely accountable to you. In any format, in any forum, I will answer to the membership because quite frankly, I just don't think it makes sense to let the board get away with anything less. And I think they have. The members here have no useful, ongoing mechanism to hold the board accountable. And debate and dissent don't seem to be on the agenda. But if real debate on the issues is avoided, then accountability is avoided also. That's so not good enough. We deserve better. You deserve better. I deserve better. I'll give you better. In fact, I'll give you the best. Now, when we look at the management of the Sea Ranch, I believe we already have the best. We have a community manager who is superbly qualified and professional, and he is supported by a very accomplished and excellent staff. But we do not yet have a board that functions with real leadership. That's why I'm here today, to interview for the job of representing you the way you really deserve to be represented. There's no question that I can do the job. The only question is whether or not you want me to do the job. I'm bringing fresh energy and inspiration. I'm not the same old, same old. We need accountability because we've got big issues in the pipeline. We've got the water company infrastructure. It's an aging infrastructure. There are situations that must be dealt with, and they're going to be big ticket items. We're thinking of forming a community service district. That will be a big impact on how we operate, if we do it or if we don't do it. We have the Bluff Trail situation. Increasingly complex, it seems, that the more we study it, every succeeding memo and report and response makes the situation more complex. But we've got that to deal with. And as for me, I don't want to give away 1 inch of the Sea Ranch. So we have a lot to decide there. I very much approve of the process that we're using to do that. And we've got fire safety issues. And the big question there is, if not now, when are we going to do something reasonable about fire safety? The Sea Ranch has always done something about reducing the fuel load. We have historically trimmed, cut, we've even burned. But we've never done enough so that we never get ahead of the problem. And we haven't even succeeded in keeping the fuel load at a static level of any given year, any given tonnage that we want. It always is growing on us. It's gaining on us geometrically. And every year we put it off, doing something real about it, the costs also escalate geometrically. We've got to do something about it. And we need to deal appropriately with the systemic errors that have crept into our systems here. These aren't errors of intent. These aren't errors because people aren't good. I do really believe that every single person engaged in our governance here is of good intent. I think they get up in the morning, look in the mirror, and intend to do good things. But the systems themselves have developed errors, and that's what we need to address. For example, real accountability is not possible within our present budget system. It's not because we're not keeping track of dollars. We are. We're doing a very good job of that. The Finance Committee does a wonderful job. It's because of the way our system is set up. We don't have project accountability. We don't track costs for a project. So we don't know what the bang is for the buck. We just don't know. Our design committee functioning has been hobbled by drifting away from the CC&Rs. The board needs to bring it back to those bedrock principles. And we need to provide additional help for the design committee by making up what they lack, by providing expertise in fire safety. They're landscape architects and architects. They're not expected to be fire safety experts, and yet they're in charge of making many of our decisions in this regard. So we need to provide additional expertise in fire safety, in green building and sustainable practices, and in advocacy for the members. We can't do these very useful things if we never acknowledge that anything is amiss. We have a rich fantasy life here at Sea Ranch where we pretend that everything is just fine. And you know, so much is. As a friend of mine is fond of saying, the pools are clean, the roads are great, Sea Ranch is wonderful, and it is. But that doesn't mean that we don't have some systemic errors that can be adjusted, mid-course correction, so that we function better and go into a better future. Closed systems do usually manage to run amok. The design committee system has been closed for 40 years. It needs to come back to the CC&Rs, which it has drifted away from for about 20 years now, and it needs a feedback loop, which it doesn't have. That's what creates the ability to be professionally self-correcting. What we need to do is safeguard our Sea Ranch by doing no harm to our environment, by doing no harm to our original concept, and by preparing for a thriving future. We need to mobilize the community for fire safety. We need to restore our lost views. We need to protect our environment. We need to create real advocacy for our members. We need to make wise choices for our future. And we need to invest in sustainability so that we can live out our years here longer than we presently can. I'm old-fashioned in terms of values and commitments, but I have some fresh new ideas. 1 minute, initiatives. We need a blue ribbon panel to study how to best return the design committee to its original CC&R structure. We need a green group to include sustainability and universal design. We need a fire group to research issues and to provide education for the community. We need an ombudsman committee. The OC, the ombudsman committee, could be a true advocate for members. We don't have that now. We need to broadcast or podcast or video all of our meetings and put them on our website so that people could tune in from anywhere in the world where they are. And in the meantime, we could at least include people by speakerphone. We need to come into this century. We need to poll our members. We can do that now. We have 60% of the membership has provided email addresses. We could do polls for nothing, for free, to find out what they're thinking. We need participation in the design committee cooperatively. These kinds of additions to our resources will make real improvement for no cost. It's a win-win. I'm ready, able, and willing to do that kind of work for you, to provide leadership, to think, to be wise, to use the distilled wisdom that I've gained from experience in my accomplishments on this planet, as they are. And I want to put my passion, my wisdom, and my leadership to work for you. I cannot do it without you. So I want you to test me today, and then I hope that you will see that I am the one you want. And I hope you'll vote for me. And after you've done that, I hope you'll vote for me again. Thank you.
Gallagher. Like most of you, we came to the Sea Ranch for many years before we actually purchased a home here. The things that appealed to us probably also appealed to you. Can I be heard? Is that okay? A little bit better? Thank you. The things that appealed to us probably also appealed to you. The natural beauty of the ocean, the meadows, the forest, the architectural cohesiveness without ticky-tacky sameness. The way buildings and landscapes seem to blend and individual homes seem to complement others in the same neighborhood. The peacefulness and serenity that contrasts so markedly with cities and especially with the typical suburbs. It wasn't until we moved here that we realized what a wonderful community this is. We found the home of our dreams, and now we live here full-time as a family. There are 8 of us. My lovely wife, Dr. Margie Hagan, myself, our 3 horses, 2 dogs, and a cat. The community is the reason that I've chosen to run for the board. Since coming here, I've made it my practice to come to board meetings, to learn how decisions are made, I learned in this the importance of committee structure and started sitting in on some of them as an observer, and then finally was honored with an invitation to join the Finance Committee. With 23 years in the finance industry, I'm capable of taking a very hard look at that dreaded bottom line. There's always that tension between the amenities we love and their cost. For 3 years, I've been to all of the budget workshops, watched the board and finance committee wrestle with these dilemmas, and I can testify to the fact that it's never an easy decision when some well-considered project must be downsized or cut. Today we find ourselves facing many of the issues that face a small town. This will become even more evident as we weigh the advantages and disadvantages of becoming a community service district. With this in mind, I think it's important that you know how I, as one of your board members, would address issues. What lens or lenses I would be using to examine the issue. So here's my method or approach. First, we must be fiscally responsible. We cannot be swayed by special interest groups into simply throwing money at an issue, no matter what their motivation. Let me cite the current discussion regarding fire mitigation as a very good example. I have to begin by saying that we are all concerned with fire risk. There isn't one of us in the association, administration, or board that is not. And our association has made tremendous strides in the past few years towards the mitigation of that risk at rather significant cost. This year's budget, we've included nearly $200,000 for fuel management. Add to that up to about $100,000 for hedgerow work and other clearing and replanting projects, and a special assessment of $40,000 for one-time expense to expedite the survey that's being done in compliance with Regulation 4291 for the state. Our carefully directed approach has proven to be effective in the past. Allow me to quote, if I may, from the latest soundings. Chief Dan Levin thanked the community manager, John Fox, for making public safety a priority. The Sea Ranch has made incredible efforts. This is a quote from Dan Levin. The Sea Ranch has made incredible efforts to manage wildfire control. It's one of the only communities with such a plan in California. He and the Sonoma County Fire Safe Commission, have been effusive about what a good job we have been doing. Even in light of these accolades, however, the accusation has been made by some that we're doing nothing. My sense of fiscal responsibility suggests that in excess of $30,000 a year is a great deal more than nothing. Still, a very vocal minority is using a listserv to demand that we should simply blithely throw money at it this year. And let me suggest that we should wait until the survey is done so the data would be available. It will still be expensive. But with accurate data, we can budget for that expense and prioritize how the money is used. Let me close on this issue by saying that I'm absolutely convinced we're currently have the very best fire safe plan of any California association. And really, my hat is off to the association and the board for getting us to that position. So my first lens would be fiscal responsibility. We must not assess ourselves out of business. The dues have risen and will continue to rise, but every expense must be weighed against its benefit to all members of the association. A second lens that I would use is the spirit of community. Rules and expenses must be viewed from the standpoint of the benefit to the largest number of members. The question here is how to know what is best for the most members. I believe we have one thing in common, all of us, and that is that we've all chosen to live here. That means that we all stand on the common ground of accepting a life with the basic concept and ethic of the Sea Ranch. And perhaps that's still best expressed in that slogan, living lightly on the land. While the process of working with the design committee might sometimes seem cumbersome, we have granted them nearly an autonomous role so that the basic physical concept of our community will be maintained. Some streamlining of the process may still be affected, but I definitely favor the safeguard of a strong, independent design committee. That being said, issues that face us may have different impact on various micro-communities. One of the best ways I can think of to have a neighborhood's concerns heard is to have kind of mini town hall meetings. As an example, Unit 18 had some concerns about the hedgerow project in their area and pulled together a neighborhood group to talk with those in authority and who had the authority to make a decision. At that meeting, the original design was altered to take into account the neighbors' concerns. I see this as a very efficient way to implement our representative government, and I pledge myself to attend as many of these kinds of meetings as it would be humanly possible for me to do. My very strong belief is that listening to members and understanding the background to their concerns is the best way to provide transparent representation in government. These then are the primary lenses through which I'll look at issues as they arise. My first question will be that of fiscal responsibility, and my second concern is that we look at everything with an eye for long-term promotion of community. In saying this, I by no means wish to diminish the roles played by public safety, environmental protection, nor will I lose sight of operational efficiency and facility maintenance, but as a businessman who dearly loves this community, my unique contribution to the next board term will be these two areas. How will these lenses come to bear on issues before us? Well, here's an example. The new owners of the lodge will undoubtedly come to the association with a new proposal for expansion. Let's assume that the plan they bring is absolutely foursquare within the agreement of 1991. This would minimize the board's interaction with the proposal, but it should not completely take the board out of the picture. My first thought would be to ascertain how this proposal impacts the water company's infrastructure and what will be the effect on their needs, not only for fresh water, but also for fire flow and wastewater disposal. What will this and other expansions mean? Yeah, okay, thank you. What will this and other expansions mean in light of the 5, 10, and 30-year projections? We will have many such issues that we're going to have to face. Bluff top erosion, other major expansions, and all these problems are things that the directors are going to have to work together with cooperatively, with each other, and with the administration, not independently and in opposition to them. It's my plan to be very much a part of that cooperation. If you should honor me with your vote, this kind of leadership is what I'll bring to the board of directors. Thank you very much.
We'll see what happens with this thing. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jim Jordan. I have been a board member for the last 3 years and am currently chair of the board. And I'm here to ask you to re-elect me for another 3 years. Thank you for coming. The association's board is your board. You are the Sea Ranch establishment, along with the other members who will see the DVD of this forum, with those who are busy with volunteer activities that sustain the Sea Ranch, and with those who are otherwise actively following this campaign. The board represents you, and this election provides you with an important opportunity to steer the board in the direction you want for the Sea Ranch. Why am I running again? I mean, after all, I've given up Saturdays now for the whole 3 years, pretty much. Just ask my wife, Joan, she's put up with it. Why am I running? Well, basically, I'm running because it's fun. It's fun. It is deeply satisfying. Fun in the sense of deep satisfaction to represent you on the board, to help the Sea Ranch respond to 21st century challenges, and to maintain institutional fidelity to the Sea Ranch vision and concept. I have found that the issues facing the Sea Ranch are many and varied, and in confronting them, I've had to learn the facts behind the issues, I've had to learn members' thoughts about the issues, and I've had to learn my fellow board members' positions on the issues. I'm not going to take you through a list of all the issues that are facing the Sea Ranch. You can read about them in my candidate statement, the second one, and on my website. And oh, by the way, let me tell you that use the website URL that's on this little flyer, not the one that is on the official printed first candidate statement. That I had a fight with Earthlink and I lost. The Sea Ranch's issues have forced me to think holistically, to see how seemingly unrelated issues affect one another and to examine the possible side effects and unintended consequences of any given action. It's been a pleasure to be part of a board that views the Sea Ranch as a complex system and works very hard to build the best compromises for the good of the Sea Ranch. The most important thing, of course, that we've done as a board in my tenure has been to recruit John Fox as community manager. John ranks with the most talented and most professional managers I've known in industry, government, or academia. We have a good staff. We had a good staff when John came. After some staff changes and reorganizations, the staff is now very good, becoming more capable, more productive, and more member-friendly each year. After a few more years of staff maturation and improvement under John's leadership, we will have a truly great staff. Why do I carry on about the staff? 3 years ago, I said I would be a frugal board member. Being frugal means choosing the right things on which to spend money, and then making sure that each dollar spent is buying the maximum benefit for the Sea Ranch. The more productive the staff is, the more benefit we are getting for each dollar spent. The more trained the staff is, the less rework has to be done to correct mistakes or fill in gaps. The more staff stability that we have, the lower the costs of hiring and training new staff members. While I'm talking about staff, I ought to also praise the corps of dedicated volunteers who staff our network of formal and informal committees. Their efforts save the association a very great deal of money while binding us quite gently into the community that we all love, in which people work together selflessly on behalf of the entire membership. Being frugal means choosing the right things on which to spend money and staff time, which is the same as money. Since John Fox came, John and the board have developed a disciplined process for our choices. The choices start with the board's 6 board budget priorities, expanded in a list of short-term goals. You've seen them in the bulletin. This year, you also saw John's report of progress toward meeting the goals. These priorities and goals frame how John and staff spend their time. They also inform the choices that I make as the association and the water company prepare their budgets. We have a transparent budgeting process for both the association and the water company. They're different processes, but both transparent, including significant input from the knowledgeable volunteers of the Finance and Utilities Committees. The association's process takes about 6 months, starting in August with an invitation to members to submit their budget suggestions, extending through 3 budget workshops organized by the Finance Committee until the budget is adopted the following February. If you can attend only one association meeting each year, make it the November budget workshop. That's the place where you can make the most difference in what happens in the finances of the Sea Ranch Association. If you can spare the time, come to all 3 workshops and participate in the discussion that refines the budget. As I close, let me shift gears. Maintaining property values and keeping the assessment down are important. It is equally important to maintain what I call the spiritual values of the Sea Ranch. Joan and I came here for years to gain respite from the metropolis where we live. We came here for the beauty and the refreshment that we find in the ocean. We came here for the openness of the commons. We came here because this is an environment that is a container for human activity, not something to be subdued by activity. All of us who are members of the Sea Ranch are blessed. Fewer than 2,300 families can be members here, and there is no community on the West Coast equal to ours. We are stewards of something that is more than our houses and infrastructure. We are stewards of something that is powerfully valuable to the human spirit. The board's constant attention to the values of the founders of the Sea Ranch is a paramount responsibility as conditions change. The board's constant attention to the future of this very special garden of spiritual renewal and natural beauty is a continuing challenge. I ask you to let me continue representing you in meeting that challenge. Thank you.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you, candidates. We are right on schedule. So we're going to now start with the Q&A, and let me just lay out some ground rules for you here. That the questions can be no more than 2 minutes long. The candidate answers will be no longer than 2 minutes. We are going to have a timer projecting on the wall, and we'll set that up in just a moment. So the questioners will be able to see that, and the speakers will be able to see that. And so now, what is important then for questioners? Please restrict your remarks to questions. You should start with, my question for candidate is, no editorials, no personal histories of volunteerism, historical reviews, or scoldings of the candidates. The questions, you're welcome to direct your remarks, what's happened in the past, direct your question to a candidate. Other candidates may want to contribute, or something on that format. If you're going to be asking a single question, and we will we'll be asking single questions, and then you'll have to return to the end of the line of questioners. Now, if that's clear, it's one question, and if you have more, you just step to the rear, okay? I've asked that our candidates up here stand when they respond, so you'll be able to see them. And that tends to get a little cumbersome, but I think it's important with a crowd this big to be able to do that. So let me, I'd ask then that I'm going to be able to ask the first question, and I'm going to step to the microphone, and then the objective is we will have room over there to form a line, and you can then step to the microphone. Okay, we'll now go ahead and form your line over there. Now, we are videotaping this procedure, so I'd like to ask you to give your name, your unit number, your block, and your lot, and then be sure and speak up. We want to record it, and we have people that may have difficulty hearing you. So I'm Jim Platt. I am Unit 24, Lot 32, and I have a question for candidate Brown. I see that you've indicated that Saturday's TSRA meetings are not consistent with your religious practices, and given that all the TSR board meetings over the years are scheduled for a Saturday early in the morning running till late in the afternoon, the question is this a conflict, and if so, how will you deal with it? Thanks.
Thank you for asking it, Jim. I think it's important to get it out of the way because it's been made much of. My personal religious affiliation is Seventh-day Adventist. It is one of the fundamental beliefs of that faith, which is a Christian religion, to keep the Sabbath, which is the biblical Sabbath. It starts on Friday afternoon, Friday evening at sunset, and goes for a 24-hour period to Saturday at sunset. And therefore, Saturday meetings are not available to me because during those hours of the Sabbath, the whole time is considered sacred time. It's not like people who go to church on Sunday and they go for an hour or two and then they're through and go to lunch and go to the game, go shopping. It's not like that with the Sabbath. With the Sabbath, secular activity is set aside, and the whole 24-hour period is used to relate to spiritual matters, to God, to worship, to study of spiritual things. Therefore, if you elect me to the board, there would be an alteration because board meetings need to accommodate the director's schedules. And the corporate code, California, indicates that one of the things that need to be accommodated to for directors in their schedule is a religious situation. Not your bingo game, not your poker game, but your religious observance is to be considered. Therefore, for board meetings, we would have to do them at a different time. We used to do them at a different time at Sea Ranch. We used to have board meetings on Sundays. And people complained that it discriminated against the people who wanted to go to church on Sundays or to use Sunday as a family day. And there were other reasons as well, of various kinds of. So meetings were changed to Saturdays. They can float, they can be any time. I would like to see all the meetings broadcast on our website. I'm on the website committee. I can help make that happen so that people around the world who are sea ranchers could come to the meetings in many ways.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Jim. I think probably now's the best time for me to say that some of you will notice, many of you will notice that I too have a relationship with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I just wish to say that changing the day of our meetings is not my wish. It's just a difference of opinion, and I'm very happy, in fact, coming as a volunteer to a not-for-profit community meeting is a very nice thing for me to be able to do. So I just wanted to clear up the one little area where there might be some confusion because of my statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go.
My name is Peter Utes. My unit block number is 18102, and I have a question for candidate Brown. You're on record in favor of supporting any mechanism that will nullify using your words, supporting any mechanism that will nullify the board's recent action on Resolution 271. And you say further you would, quote, support any and all special members' meetings on any issue, end quote. In fact, you go so far as to say that the special meetings, quote, for members to come out and enforce on a particular issue is the ultimate involvement in democratic governance, and I support it with all my heart. And I have a question about this. We're not talking town hall meetings here. You're talking about Sterling Davis special member meetings to overturn board decisions or oust board members. And my questions are, how would it work? If we had special meetings on issues instead of relying on our elected representatives on the board, wouldn't that be a major change in our governance? Do you know how it would affect costs? How would it affect the many members who wouldn't be able to attend the special meeting? Meetings would only represent members present unless people start soliciting proxies. Do you support the proxy gathering as well? And so if we had special meetings and proxy gathering campaigns for those meetings, it seems like our governance would become much less stable, more volatile, less organized, and favor vocal minorities. So my question is, have you considered these issues on the topic? And do you have any experience with these matters that has educated you regarding what you're proposing?
Thank you for asking it. I do think members' meetings are the most powerful, most democratic aspect of community governance, but they are exceedingly rare. And the reason they're so rare is that it's very difficult to bring them about. You have to get 5% of the membership to sign a petition asking for a meeting. Then you have to get a quorum, either in person or by proxy. Quorum is half the membership, if I'm remembering correctly from the bylaws. And they have to gather together at a time that's assigned by the board. The board assigns the time for the members. It's a complex process. It's rarely used because it is cumbersome. But the power of a members' meeting is astounding. The members at a members' meeting, rather than working through their elected representatives, are actually there in their own voice. It's quite a marvel of democracy, but it just doesn't happen much. If it could, it would be actually more like the town hall situation in New England, but it just doesn't happen here. It's very unlikely to happen here, especially because we can't go around the neighborhood and knock on doors and get the signatures on the petitions. It's a hard thing to do. Without the internet, I don't think you could even try to do it. But yes, I would support any mechanism to overturn Resolution 271 because our present board passed that and they should not have. It works around our CC&Rs. It disables our CC&Rs. It goes to the very fundamental aspect of communities, which is that the association cares for the common property and the private property owners care for their own property. It just does an end run around that. It's really sneaky.
Okay, that's 2 minutes. You want to wrap up? Thank you. All right, next.
Gary Reaver, Unit 12, Lot 46.
Closer.
I'm sorry, for Jim Jordan. The last time you ran for the board, you promised transparency and free communication with the community, but I still don't understand how Resolution 271 will do anything to reduce the horrible fire hazard. And I don't see you making any effort to explain why we are safer. I understand how your decision will make community members poorer because they now have the burden of fuel reduction on the commons. How did you come to the rationalization that Rule 1.03 shifted the responsibility for maintaining the commons off the property owners and onto the association, when all along the CC&R directives clearly put that responsibility on the association?
Does everybody understand what Resolution 271 was, and what? Okay. Resolution 271 was a resolution that was offered to clean up the language of Rule 1.03. Rule 1.03 has to do with vegetation management, and specifically the specific area, well, vegetation management and fire safety. Specifically, the interest here has to do with changing the rule so that, yeah, he's given me some extra time to explain what this thing is. The issues here have to do with accommodating the new laws relating to fire safety that have been imposed by the state. And oh, by the way, it's the state's responsibility for raising the costs for everybody who has a home in the forest, any forest in California. And maybe, oh, okay, you've got me on timer now. Okay. That's appropriate since I made my comment. Where am I? The change in Rule 1.03 has had zero effect on whether the Sea Ranch is more or less fire safe. The Sea Ranch is just as fire safe now as it was 2 months ago. And that is because no change in activity has happened. What's the rationale? The rationale is let's get the rules set so that they correspond to the reality of how we're operating our Sea Ranch. I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, I would like to address what you said, Jim, and I'd like to address this question. What Resolution 271 did is it reversed it changed Rule 1.03, which our board in 1998 passed unanimously, with Marty Campbell as our chair at that time. The board passed Rule 1.03 unanimously, and that rule stated, amongst other things, that the Sea Ranch Association was responsible for maintaining the commons in fire-safe condition. The new Rule 1.03, courtesy of the board's recent action, completely wiped that out. It doesn't appear. The problem with Rule 1.03 is not what it does say, it's what it does not say. It dropped that language entirely. It also dropped the requirement that vacant lots maintain their lot for fire safety. In these two important ways, it subverts the intent of our CCRs, and it makes the Sea Ranch less fire safe because nobody is now responsible for cleaning up certain areas of the commons where they abut private lots and are 100 feet away from structures. It's called the defensible zone, the defensible space zone, and the owner's responsibility for making it fire safe ends at their property line. But if their 100-foot circumference for defensible space travels over the property line onto the commons, Rule 1.03 would have the owner believe that they now have to take care of the commons in that area, which of course is not in accordance with state law. State law, not the PRC, but regular state law, says that all associations are responsible for maintaining the common areas. Of course, it's just common sense. But this resolution changed that rule, and in so doing, it It cloaked the real intent of our CCRs and of the state law. It was the wrong thing to do. It needs to be changed back.
Okay, thank you.
I too would like to speak to this because I don't know what all the regular California state laws are, but the new rule 4291 does state that we need to have a defensible space around the house that is not addressed, around our structures, that is not addressed in Rule 1.03. And 1.03 actually left it more confusing because it's very difficult to know what in fact the association and the individual's rights and obligations were. I'm not certain that Rule 271 is the perfect, nor do I believe that it's the ultimate answer. I think that there is another one. But by allowing the homeowners to go onto the commons and do some cleaning up if they choose to, we have opened doors for members. We haven't closed them. Now, to suppose that we have shifted expense is not at all true either. One way or another, there's cost involved in all of this clearing. Some of this, I think, should be borne by the association. But some members, in fact, I believe that one was posting sometime not long ago that they wanted the right to go onto the commons and be able to do some of that clearing themselves. And within the design committee guidelines and rules, now the fact is that individuals can do that. The answer isn't fully in yet. But in fact, I believe we're better off to not have a rule that is not being implemented and in fact constricts what members can do.
Jim, can I answer what Tim has said?
I think we're ready. Okay, let's move on to another topic if we can. If we have time, we can come back and revisit this.
I'm Klaus Heinemann, and I have Unit 28, Lot 64. And my question is indeed on a different topic. It's the topic of bluff-top erosion. And maybe the question is a little unorthodox. I see that there are 4 groupings with different interests. One is the homeowners near the trouble areas, and they obviously would like to have the current situation protracted. Then there is the second grouping is the association members at large as owners of the commons impacted. The third is the association members using the trails. And the fourth is the general public using the trails. And I have a simple question that I'd like to address to each of you. Where is your primary allegiance in those 4 groups?
Okay, well stated. Good. All right. As we talk about this, let's do when these come up. See what we're going to just go down the table this way first time. Okay.
Very simply, my priority is for the association members. That is for that which is the best for the entire association membership.
I agree with Jim.
I don't think it's that simple. Is this thing working?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think it's that simple because the fact is, you're absolutely right, and it's a very well stated question that there is more than one group. And so the fact of the matter is, the people in that locality need to be heard as well. This is one of the cases in which I think a micro-community meeting might be useful so that we could get together and listen simply to the group who feel that their privacy is being infringed upon. However, at the same time, we really want to protect commons. We really don't want encroachment in commons. And we really don't want to have members, the entire association be left out. And I think legally we cannot leave out the public who wishes to have the use of the bluff trail. So we need to continue our work with Sonoma County, and we need to take into consideration the micro community as well as the macro community when we're talking about this question of bluff erosion.
Can I address that? I'll be brief. It is a complex issue, but Klaus asked which one was most important. It is the job of the director to make decisions for the benefit of the association. Of course, contained within that is regard for the members whose homes are at risk, whose property at risk, regard for abiding by the contract that we have with the state. All of those things are incorporated, but the job of the director must be, it's a legal fiduciary responsibility of the director to do the best thing for the association.
Okay. All right, next question.
Hello, my name is Chris Beach, Unit 21, Lot 16, and my question is a little bit different. I'm talking about the design committee, and I want to emphasize not the staff. I think the staff is doing a wonderful job, especially with what they've got to work with. After I had an encounter with the design committee recently that was just totally baffling, I called 8 of the local architects to do the majority of work. They probably designed most of the houses that you people live in. And all I had to do was say, how's it going with the design committee? And just stick the phone out here and just sit there for an hour.
I kind of lost track of your question.
Well, I'll get into the question if you don't mind. I got 2 minutes. Anyway, what it boils down to is it appears that the committee itself is making arbitrary, confusing, circle-running decisions and changing their mind after something's been approved and sort of on and on and on. You can hear about every story there is out there. And what it's ended up doing is costing the clients, which are association members, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of time and effort and money to redesign things and just keep going on and on and on. If this in fact is true, and I wish that all of you would call these architects, they're in the phone book, and talk to them. If this is true and you're elected to the board, what would you do about it? Thank you.
Are you directing that to one candidate or what?
I'd like to hear from all three.
All right, so we'll start and we'll.
What this gentleman says is absolutely true. I have had those, maybe some of those same architects talk to me in the same manner. We also know it's true because the design committee members themselves complain in public meetings that the designs that they are having submitted to them are decreasing in professionalism, in the goodness of the design, and they lament what's going on. They don't seem to understand why it's going on that way. But there are, I think, 2 things that the board can do to help the design committee. They say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But we do need a fix here. And it can be had reasonably and for no money. 1, we get a blue ribbon panel together to advise the design committee on how to make a transition back to the CC&Rs, which have been, perhaps unwittingly, violated for about the last 20 years. The design committee does not function as it was designed to function. Instead of having 3 members, it has 6 members who then meet on a rotating basis so that every time your design comes back to be considered, something different is looking at it. That makes for inconsistency, and that is driving our architects and designers and landscape designers crazy. Because it is an utter waste of everybody's time, and it makes people dumb down their designs. So that's why we're getting so much bad design. They're dumbed down to slip through. The other thing that needs to happen, and the board can do this, is it can direct the design committee to invite the member to attend the discussion whenever a proposal of theirs is on the table. That simple one item would entirely change this broken, closed system because it would give the design committee a feedback loop.
All right, thanks very much. Tim?
I appreciate, Chris, your question, because I know on the other hand, you are an advocate for a strong design committee. And so I think that you are a very sympathetic ear, and I appreciate your concerns. I think the design committee has come a long way from where it was. I had hoped that in fact we had solved some of the issues that architects and designers were having. It seems to me as though there still are some issues, and these do need to be addressed. I think the primary concept, one of the things I love about the Sea Ranch, as I mentioned in my opening statement, is the architectural unity without some kind of ticky-tacky sameness. And I love the fact that you can go into a neighborhood and houses will complement other houses, and there's nothing that's going to be overbearing. And I don't know a single architect who comes to the design committee for the Sea Ranch and dumbs things down, but maybe I'm not privy to all of that information. We need to figure out how to make the process more streamlined and how to make it more consistent. And I would certainly like to see that happen. But people like you, Chris, who can stand there on both sides of that issue and say we must have a design committee, but let's make it more functional, are the very ones that I think have a right to speak to this issue.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Well, we speak of not violating CC&Rs, and we need to be very, very careful that we understand the difference in the responsibilities of the board and the responsibilities of the design committee. There is, unfortunately, as I found out in my first term, no way for the board to direct the design committee to do things because they're autonomous, and that's the meaning of autonomy. They get to do it their way. Now that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do everything we can to make sure that the interaction between members and the design committee isn't as free, flowing, and as rapid a process as it can be. And we have made some changes from the association's point of view in staffing. We've made some changes in process. The design committee has made some changes in process. Chris reports that those changes aren't working, and that's something that we need, I think, as a board to look at and understand. I did, yesterday, I had the opportunity to ask about meetings, and I learned that very few members are attending the meetings to which they have been invited. That is to say, they've been invited to meetings, but for whatever reason, they're not coming to them.
Okay, thank you. Let's take one more question, then we'll have our break.
Lenny Alter, 5417. Actually, I was going to ask questions about the design committee, and you've talked enough about it, but I would say that I think Chris's concerns were very valid and maybe understated. From my experiences, it's a lot worse than anybody up here has even wanted to agree to. So I won't deal with anything more except for please take the design committee's problem seriously. My question is for everybody, and it is, what is your policies on view restoration? And as we know, the trees are growing. I've been to many meetings where I'm told by the Sea Ranch that their goal is to retain the original integrity of the Sea Ranch. If you look at what the Sea Ranch was in 1969, it was nothing but hedgerows and meadows. there wasn't a tree here. So every time somebody hugs those trees that they say is the Sea Ranch, please remember they were planted. So I'd like to know what your goals are for restoring views, which also retains value to the real estate.
Thank you, Lenny. I do think it's an important question, and I'm a tree hugger. but the fact of the matter is, we have reached an interesting place where we are going to have to deal with a number of questions about trees. The fire issue in regard to trees is a very important issue. I fear sometimes that view restoration gets a bad name because fire prevention is thrown up as the reason when somebody wants a view restoration.
Nobody will talk to you if you talk about view restoration. They'll only talk to you if you talk about fire prevention.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's too bad. That's really too bad. The fact of the matter is, my position at this point, and I'm not saying that I can't be dissuaded, but my position at this point is that view restoration ultimately becomes a design committee issue. I have had somebody who lives above me make a request for some tree removal, and I believe it was quite clear that it was in part for tree restoration. And Marky and my response to this particular petition was we wrote back that we happen to love trees. At the same time, we thought Bill Wiemeyer and that group were doing a pretty good job of taking care of it, and so we wanted to just put it back into their hands. Now that's my own personal situation. I think views are important, and I think property values are also important, but I think it's a design issue that we have to leave with the design committee ultimately. And we're back then again to the autonomy of that committee. That's a great question, Lenny. I do think it's something that has to be dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
I must say, I guess I think that we have focused so much of our attention on fire safety that we haven't spent enough time looking at view restoration as a positive contribution to the Sea Ranch. At least not in recent board history. I was interested in and will encourage the planning committee. Planning committee started talking at its last meeting, I guess last month, started talking about meadow restoration. And if you know, the meadows used to be a lot bigger than the meadows are today. And I think meadow restoration is a way of thinking about how you regain at least some of the character of the landscape that existed 20, 30, 40 years ago. I guess what I'm saying is I think this is something that needs active thought, and I don't know that I have a program or a plan that I can propose to you right now to do that.
Okay, thank you. Ziggy?
I have a program, I have a plan. If you put me on the board, I will do everything in my power to restore views at the Sea Ranch with full sensitivity to the people who also need their privacy and their screening to be considered. There are dilemmas with view restoration, but they must be tackled. We cannot keep saying, well, you know, it's difficult, so we'll study it. We've got to do something about this. One of the saddest things I know is to visit a sea rancher at their home, and they take you to one little spot at the living room window and say, if you stand on your tiptoes and look over there, you can see where our view used to be. That is just a heartbreak. We have stolen from our members. We have stolen their views by our mismanagement of an unnatural forest. We have stolen their views by inaction and no gumption and no backbone to stand up to and find resolution for difficult situations. And we have stolen their property values. We have stolen their enjoyment of their homes. You'll walk into a home and you'll see it was designed around a view that has been obliterated. Not to mention empty lots that also thought they had views and that now have a Christmas tree farm. Very nice, but not what was intended. Not what was intended by the framers of the CCRs. When my husband and I first drove through the Sea Ranch, it must have been about 25 years ago, I remember saying to him, so this is the Sea Ranch, huh? And he said, yes. And I said, it looks so bleak, so barren. Now when I drive up Highway 1, I say, not only is it the tree ranch, but it's crowding into the highway. It scares me for fire safety.
Okay, that's 2 minutes, please. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to get together again sharply at 5:20.
Why does a little red light come on?
Because I'm recording right now, you're in it.
I'm sorry. Get around here now. Why does the red light come on? Every once in a while it brings on.
I don't know. I don't know. It's irrelevant.
Questions, so we will start there. Rob?
Thank you. I'm Rob Elder, Unit 34A, Lot 73.
Closer to the microphone.
Closer to the microphone. Can you hear me now? Right before our break, we heard a lot of anecdotal evidence, both from people with questions and from people up on our candidate table, about how terribly impossible it is to get view restoration in Sea Ranch. I just want to say that a tree on commons grew to the size that it was blocking whatever view I ever had. And I called Sea Ranch staff, and basically their answer in a nutshell was, we'll cut it if you'll pay for it. They did and I did. In my experience, it was not a big problem. And I just wanted to contribute that to the discussion. However, my question really is to ask for a clarification, because I'm not sure I heard what I thought I heard at the very beginning of this forum. And I'd like to ask Tim Gallagher and C.E. Brown both to tell me if I heard correctly. I think I heard C.E. say that if she's elected to the board, state law would require that Sea Ranch board meetings and forums, I guess, too, not be held on Saturday. I'd like to ask you if you did, in fact, say that, and if you believe that. I'd like to ask Tim, who I know from your candidate statement and what you said today, you're also associated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I think you once were a pastor in that church. Did you say that you see no conflict between serving on the board and the board meeting on Saturdays and your religion? So clarification from each of you, please.
You did not hear that correctly, Rob. I am Seventh-day Adventist. What I said was that the California Corporate Code allows for accommodation of directors' schedules and accommodation for their bona fide religious practice is one such accommodation. In an association or in any organization, the time for the meeting should accommodate the participants. So a staff meeting at the office should accommodate the schedules of staff members. A committee meeting should accommodate the schedules of the committee members. A members meeting, like our annual meeting or forum, should accommodate the schedules of the members. And a directors meeting should accommodate the schedules of the directors. It's standard practice everywhere in the world. Well, I don't know about everywhere in the world, but standard practice in this country. And in fact, it's even standard practice in Gualala. They had their GMAC meeting last night. They didn't stick to a Saturday. We've become focused on Saturdays at this place because we believe that it's better for our off-ranch people. We've not polled them. The communication committee did a survey a couple of years ago, and I was reading the responses to their questions about which meetings are important and how people attend. Two of the people who responded actually said that they couldn't come to meetings because they worked on Saturdays, and they lamented that. Many of our locals who do work in Gualala and service the tourist trade. That trade is heavy on the weekends. Why can't we have meetings on any day that accommodates the people? If we do it right and come into the present century and use technological advantages that we now have, we can make access available to almost everybody when they want it.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Rob, you did hear me correctly. I too have a relationship with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I do not find a conflict with my participation in being a volunteer board member for a not-for-profit community association. That's just a personal preference, and I'm certainly not trying to suggest that anybody else's preference should follow mine. The Seventh-day Adventist Church allows a certain spectrum of beliefs in various areas. Certainly to say that Seventh-day Adventists never work on the Sabbath is patently silly. When I was a minister, not only did I have to work on the Sabbath, if I had decided to not work on the Sabbath, I would no longer have been paid. So it's a personal question. It just happens that because I do work, that Saturdays are a very nice day for me to take the time to be a volunteer. It also happens that I believe a majority of members are in fact able to attend more easily if the meetings are on Saturday. So you did hear me correctly, thank you.
Okay, good.
Gary Reaver again. Oh, by the way, comment on the design review process. I could probably write a book on that one. I was in the process for 4 years before I got my final letter of submittal.
Okay, your question?
Anyway, that's just a comment. Here's my question. For Jim Jordan, when you were moderator of the first community forum on proposed revisions to the design manual in early 2005, you cherry-picked the questions and threw away an estimated 100 plus questions. You stated that as much time as needed would be provided during the forum to address all the questions submitted. In fact, here's a quote from you. "We will not close the workshop until every member who wishes to be heard has been heard." Unquote. How could you ignore all those unanswered questions? What did you do with the 100 plus questions on 3x5 cards that you never let known were submitted? Why has it been 2.5 years since the January 8th workshop and still no design manual? When a promise is a promise, when is a promise with you?
Well, for starters, there were, I don't know, maybe it was 120, 130 3x5 cards that were basically typed in a font that you have to have young eyes for, and I don't have young eyes. And they were just too damn hard to read. Now, having said that, they were simply, as near as I could tell, a long, long document that had been chopped up into little pieces on the 3x5 card and stuck on a 3x5 card. Cherry picking, I don't think so. I think what we did, I did, and others who worked with me, clustered questions. We didn't ask specific, necessarily everybody's specific questions, but we tried to get everybody's topic discussed. I think we got most of the topics that were on those little 4-point type cards. I don't guarantee that. We did then take all of those cards, and they were available at the association office. They may still be available at the association office for all I know. And the other point is that I was disappointed that we didn't carry on the workshop further, but unfortunately, the time got cut out from under me.
Okay, next.
Steve Karsh from 36A 19. This question is for all the members, and it's slightly different than the other issues. As somebody who's worked in emergency medical services for 20 years, I want to retire up here, but I'm concerned by what I perceive to be inadequacies of both the communications and medical infrastructures. I'm particularly concerned about the possibilities and the practicalities of aging in place. And I wondered specifically what each of the three candidates was willing to do to foster that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're back to starting with Jim.
I think this is a tough issue because I'm one of these people that wants to live here forever. I'm also have enough scar tissue of dealing with older relatives and friends to know that the practicality is that I'm likely not to be able to be here forever. And it turns out, looking at it, I think our demographics are such that we cannot afford, as our small community, to do all the things we'd like to do in order to have livability until death. Having said that, we have been encouraging, and there was a series of forums, started when I was part of the forum committee, on aging in place. We've been trying to get more and more universal design thought about. We've been trying to get universal design, meaning being able at various levels of disability to live in a house. We have tried to encourage the development of 39B as an area for aging in place. That has been tough, I think, for the developers to find the right economic model that would make that work. Hopefully, later next month, they're going to come to us with a plan that may make some sense.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Sustainability ought to be right at the top of our action agenda. When this place started out, it was on the cutting edge of what people can do to live with nature and to live as a community. We can be on the cutting edge again in how to make this life available and available and available. If we had a robust internet structure here, we could have telemedicine. We could engage the technology that is available in the outside world that could be used for us. Yesterday, I was at a training course for first aid and CPR, and we learned how to use the external defibrillators. It's a marvel. You just slap on the things and hook up, and they tell you what to do, shock or no shock. Your heart starts. There are devices almost that simple that can do an EKG at a distance, relayed instantly to your doctor at a university medical center. There are devices that can, even now coming online, that can do MRIs in a similar fashion, where basically you have to be able to push the on button. It's available out there, but we aren't making provision for it. We aren't seeing it. We aren't leading out into the future. We're stuck in the past. We can enjoy the rich heritage of our history here and also make use of this new century and what's available to us. It starts with connectivity with the outside world. We must have robust communication capability, which would make us safer in every kind of emergency and in disaster preparations as well. But it would enable our people to relate to doctors in the major metropolitan centers and also enjoy life in this wonderful place.
Dr. Karch, I think it's you. Would you stand up again? I want everybody to notice this man. If anybody has a heart attack next year on the Sea Ranch, it is possible that this man will have saved your life. He is the man who has, in fact, gotten us to add to the budget this year so that we can have 10 defibrillators scattered around on the Sea Ranch. And I understand that you're going to help us learn how to use those things, because I personally wouldn't know how to do it unless somebody would teach me how. I understand they're very easy, though.
The trouble we had when we designed the course when we first introduced it in the Las Vegas casinos was what to do with the 4 hours we had allocated for the training. Because it took about 7 minutes and then for the other 3 hours.
Dr. Karch, thank you so much. And the fact of the matter is, he is the one who is bringing the Sea Ranch into the 21st century so that we can start handling some of these kinds of things. I've been sitting on the board of RCMS for the last year. We'd love to be able to expand the kinds of things that we can do for people here at the Sea Ranch. Steve, Anita's husband, has been working hard, and we just passed the CLSD assessment. And so that, in fact, we can have an absolutely up-to-the-minute team of medical professionals who are running around in these machines up and down the highway And they know what to do when we have trouble. So the fact of the matter is, when you couple that with the recent budget action, well, you have to remember I'm Tim, with the recent budget action to increase the communication facilities so that we can have the most up-to-date emergency kind of communication system that is available anywhere. When you couple those things together with what we're trying to do with 39B and get something in here, I think it's about to happen. I have real hope that it's going to happen, and thank you for helping it get started.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, let's continue now. We're going to start our closing statements at 5:45, so our question period will continue then. Go ahead.
My name is Donna Karsh, 36819, and I have a question for all three of the candidates.
Could you speak closer to the microphone? I can't even hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Maria. My question is for all three of the candidates, and it's a different question. I noticed that CE is a member of the Community Association Institute, and I wondered if she and Jim and Tim have attended other committees or been involved in any of the Davis Sterling workshops.
Okay, I think at this time we're starting with CE and then Jim and then Jim.
Yes, I am a member of the card-carrying member of the Community Association Institute. Our association also belongs to that organization. It's a national organization of communities that seeks to make life better in communities on a professional level. I'm a speaker, in fact, at the 56th National Convention of that organization in Las Vegas later this month, and I'm going to be speaking on resolving difficulties and conflict within associations. They actually came to me and recruited me to be on the panel, to be a speaker. They had read some things that I had written and wanted me to speak. I came to that organization as a volunteer member because of my volunteer work in governance here at the Sea Ranch. I have also attended legal seminars that bring people up to date, bring associations up to date about the Davis Sterling Act, which is a complex series of laws. Much like the tax code, keeps getting fixed and made better, and which means that it keeps getting more complicated. But it's easy to understand when you have professional law firms explaining to you and helping guide you. And one of the things that's always stressed is that you must take care of the responsibilities of the association, particularly where safety is concerned, and things that go on here that leave us unsafe should never be permitted. And I would address those if I'm on the board. Yes, I think that we have a duty to educate ourselves as participants here at the Sea Ranch. If we want to be on the board, we have a duty to keep up to date, to be professional, to know what's going on in the field. And I've already done that.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
I don't belong to any particular legal organizations. And I don't know that I have a particular desire to do so. We do have counsel for those kinds of things. I have served on other association boards. I spent the full 9 years that I was a member of an association in Berkeley. I was also a member of the board and the treasurer of that particular organization. I have had to read a great deal about a variety of issues regarding law and community boards. But the fact is, I don't wish to be a professional in that particular field. What I would like to be a professional in is helping to deal with the issues that come that our attorney, and let our attorney deal with the legal aspects of that. I believe perhaps a moment about our attorney is not a bad moment to spend. Mr. Tafe has been with this association for a number of years. He's helped us through a number of issues. At the same time, I don't think an attorney should be a policymaker, but I do think that he should be able to help us stay out of the legal problems. Thank you.
No, I'm not a member of the CAI or any of the other various homeowner association organizations. I guess we all have to make our choices as to how we spend our time. And there is only so much time that one can spend on being a board member and maintain all the other things you'd like to do in life. I've chosen to spend my time trying to understand the interests and the issues of the membership of the Sea Ranch. And so I spend my time that I might spend at CAI or something like that. I spend my time on Saturdays going to committee meetings. I spend my time going, as I did yesterday, down to a design review in the city that was a very important and very interesting one. I spend my time on the things that I think I, as a representative of you, the membership, should be spending my time on. Now, I do maintain a membership on a number of listservs that tell me what's the hot topic of the day, of the year, in the homeowner association world.
I apologize, I messed up the timer, and there's about 10 seconds left.
Okay, my final 10 seconds worth then is that one of the groups that I have the listserv for is the California Law Review, which is a group that is doing a lot of planning for what the law, what Davis Sterling should look like, not what it does look like, and trying to keep track of that.
All right, we have time. We'll take one more question, then we have to move to closing statement.
Thank you. My name is Russell Hardy. I live at 35A11, I think. Unlike, I think, everyone up front here, and unlike, I think, most of the current members of the board, my wife and I have actually built a house here in the last couple of years, and I can tell you from personal experience, the way the design committee functions presently is ludicrous. I also am a little puzzled by comments which I've heard that the board has no influence over the design committee. And the reason I'm puzzled is we hire these people, we appoint them, we pay their salary, presumably we can fire them. Now, my question is this. I wonder how, and this is for all the members of the panel, how you would feel about establishing a system, an annual performance review for the members of the committee, singly and collectively, not on their design decisions, which I agree the board shouldn't be meddling with, but on their administrative functioning, to deal with issues that have to do with poor communication, disorganization, and other things which not only antagonize people building houses, but run the bill up with the architects we fired. And I'd like you each to answer these questions.
Okay. Tim?
Russ, I really, I don't know how much the board can do in terms of administration with the design committee. I do know, and I personally buy into, as I've said before, the fact that the design committee is autonomous. And I understand that we do hire and therefore probably could fire the entire committee. We hire them individually. I'm not sure if we can fire them individually or not. But I think your real point is that you see a discontinuity in the way that the design committee is working. I had hoped that some of this would be cleared up with some of the recent changes that have taken place in formulating the design manual and so forth. And I've been interested to learn recently that in fact there still are issues, and it still does perhaps there needs to have some streamlining. And the issue of consistency is a really big issue. I think it's something that the board does need to take a look at, but I can't tell you that I have an answer right now.
Okay.
Well, the question of whether we can fire them is actually a little ambiguous, and I haven't quite figured that out yet. We do have actually, of course, hiring capability. We do, the board does, the board has, over the past several years, met with the design committee. We have influence on the design committee. We can tell the design committee what we're hearing from our membership, and we do. And we can sometimes gently guide, and we will, toward better forms of communication. We do have some things we can do within our power, and those are the things that I am particularly focused on. What can we do to improve our staff support so that the interaction with members is smoother, easier, and that there is at least a more consistent communication back and forth. There are some things that, quite frankly, I don't think that we, the board, can do to force the design committee to do any particular reorganization.
Okay, thank you. CD?
I represent a clear and distinct difference from what you have just heard from the other two candidates. Russ is absolutely right. My husband and I have built a house here. I know exactly what he's talking about. I think it should almost be prerequisite that you shouldn't be able to be on the board unless you've had a round or two with the design committee. Because you just can't understand until you go through it. You read the manual, you think, well, that sounds reasonable. You know that the CC&Rs allow for, designed for, a strong and independent design committee. Of course we all want that. We don't like the plastic pink flamingos. And we do want a natural environment where the buildings are subjugated to the natural landscape. We're all clear on that. That goes without saying. But where it gets really crazy is that this closed system has been accumulating errors for a long time. And it has literally reached the point where the aberrant behavior of a closed system has become abusive to the members. And it must change. Of course there's something the board can do about it. They hire them, of course they can fire them. We have on our staff a wonderful woman, Lisa Scott, out there, sorry Lisa. Shouldn't have mentioned her by name perhaps. She is our resident architect. And she was also the architect that Bill and I went to design our home. That was before she worked for the association. But she, if given support, she could redesign that entire department upstairs. The DCEM in its present form doesn't have to exist that way. That's not written into the CC&Rs. It could be, that's an administrative figment of somebody's imagination, and it could be redesigned. We can do marvels with the design committee.
Okay, that's 2 minutes.
Talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you a lot more.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the Q&A period. So now we're going to go into closing statements, maximum of 3 minutes. And the order we established before the meeting is going to be CE, Tim, and then Jim. So I will now let them proceed.
Please catch my ear over sushi at the reception because I have so much more to tell you, so many questions weren't asked. If you elect me on your board, I promise you that we will not be suing our own members. We will not be wasting your dues money on lawsuits that drag on endlessly and cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars and torment our members. I would never participate in something like that. There are so many ways to solve problems that don't involve lawsuits. In lawsuits, the only people who win are the lawyers. I would create an ombudsman committee. I would create solutions. I would engage in personal diplomacy, whether it's with our members or with the county. I've done those things before. I know how to help, and I would. You would have an active board member in me who knows that things are possible, who does think outside the box, who does support our bedrock principles, and wants us to abide by our CC&Rs, which we do not always do right now. And that's a problem, which we pretend doesn't exist. But I will be working for you. Back to what I had planned to say, which is that I really would like you to vote for me. Jim Jordan is coming to this election from the most enviable position on earth, the incumbent chair of the board. He has the bully pulpit, and he's been well known. He has a lovely wife who is known in the community for her good works. He's in a great position. He really doesn't need your vote. Don't worry about him. Tim Gallagher is a delightful person. I just found out when I read his candidate statement that he's a Seventh-day Adventist too. It's so peculiar in this election that 2 of the 3 candidates should be a Seventh-day Adventist. I've been a 20-year member of the Sea Ranch, never knew there was another Adventist up here, but it turns out Tim is. But he's a wonderful fellow, and he is well known as a convivial host. He also has a lovely wife who is active in the community. And so, he'll get taken care of. You don't need to worry about him either. But you need to worry about me. I'm an acquired taste, and some people haven't yet acquired the taste. And so I'd like you to give both your votes to me. I have no lovely wife. I'm not a convivial host. We never have anyone over to our house because I'm so lousy in the kitchen. And so, whereas Tim is, wonderful in the kitchen, I hear. So please do consider voting for somebody real, somebody who will really answer your questions, who will say it like it really is, who's not afraid. Please vote for me. And then after you've done that, please vote again. Cumulative voting, you can put both your votes on me. And it would be a really good thing to do for the Sea Ranch.
You're right, CE, I have not acquired the taste. I have mentioned to you already the lenses through which I would view various issues. I want to just take a moment to say that there are certain priorities that I would like to see entertained as well. Public safety, including the excellent work that the Sea Ranch has begun with fire mitigation, including the security staff. Public safety is a most important issue. Updating and improving the infrastructure of the water company. We have some really big bills that are hanging out there over us in the water company. How are they going to be paid? What's going to be the time framework? And who's going to be doing the paying? And how does the new development impact those things? I would like to encourage some improvement and consistency in the way the design committee works with the members. And I would like to see this being done in a very cooperative way. I don't think it has to be done via demands. Now, I know one of the candidates has not asked for endorsements. In fact, has been rather proud to say that there aren't any, but I want you to know that I'm just absolutely honored by you who have endorsed my candidacy. And I want to thank Pete Mattson for taking the chairmanship of my committee and the youths for being so involved. It's just everybody. We've got a whole lot of people who have been so encouraging in this candidacy. And I am looking forward to this continuing campaign. I am not, while I am in favor of the streamlining of the design committee, I am not in favor at all of of the emasculation of that committee. And I believe that there is a small group that would like to see that. And finally, the legal budget. For those of us who have attended the budget meetings, we know that in fact the legal budget for the coming year, which has been $110,000 a year, has been cut absolutely in half. And the budget for the coming year is only $55,000, and the reason for that is because the administration is working just very, very hard for trying to solve all the issues as they come up. And I think they're doing just a great job of mitigating the potential for legal action. Finally, yes, I too would like for you to vote early and vote often, but I can say one thing that no one else here can say, because I'm not a, thank you, because I'm not a board member. I can even pass on an endorsement. I would love to have you cast one vote for me, J. Tim. But the fact of the matter is, I think Jim Jordan is a wonderful board member and deserves the status of incumbent and would continue as a tremendous chairman. So I would like to see you cast one for him. He can't say that.
Don't get in my way. I guess I'm trying to prove I'm real. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. And thank you, Forum Steering Committee, for organizing this forum. Appreciate very much the hard work that goes into this. Thank each of you for being here, and thank you for your questions. The ones I answered well and the ones I didn't answer well. I'm glad to know what you're thinking. Our time has been very brief, and so have been my responses. I will use my second candidate statement and my website to expand on my views on some of the issues that were raised here. 3 years ago, I said, I care deeply for the Sea Ranch, for the members who live here, for the members who come here part-time, for the members who expect sometime to live here. I want our values, our spiritual and financial values, to be preserved and enhanced. The Association Board of Directors is the most important group that can act, preserve, and enhance our values. I have a unique set of personal attributes that have helped me serve as a careful, thoughtful, collegial, and decisive member of the board. I am more prepared than I was 3 years ago because now I bear scar tissue, the kind of scar tissue that being immersed in reality gives. I have an in-depth knowledge of the issues that confront us. I have had experience, too, dealing systematically with issues that pop up as surprises, and am better prepared for the surprises of the next 3 years. My unique set of personal attributes will continue to help me serve you, conserving the Sea Ranch vision and concept while conserving our property values. So I believe that I can continue to serve you well as a Sea Ranch Association board member, and so I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate very much your attendance here. I think this was very useful, and I appreciate your interactions. I'd like us to give all our candidates a round of applause. With that, let us now adjourn to the reception.
Say, put the chair somewhere.